It's the day before school starts and we are winding up for a whole new schedule. So I am trying to get the kitchen, our family hub, under control. Come spend the day cooking and cleaning with me and digging into a little everyday homemaking. Sometimes I think when we're watching things like homemaking content, we're looking for these new and transformational ideas so we can lead and run our lives differently. But really, a lot of homemaking is relatively uninteresting but deeply important. And I'm not necessarily saying that seasoning and conditioning your cutting board is the most important thing you can do, but I am saying that taking care of our space and taking care of our lives in ways that make us feel productive and efficient are extremely important. And that, I think, is where everyday homemaking comes into play. An end grain cutting board is an investment, so I want to make sure I keep it nice. So the first thing I'm doing is I am seasoning it with Howard Products cutting board oil, and I'm seasoning it 3 times. So it's a simple process of just putting the oil on the cutting board, rubbing it in, and then letting it soak in for 15 minutes and repeating that 2 more times. And you could even repeat it a couple more times if your cutting board is very dry. And now I am conditioning my board, which is done the exact same way. So after you season it 3 times, you put the conditioner on, which is also Howard Products, rub it in, let it soak in for 15 minutes, and then repeat that 2 more times. Then after that third conditioning, let it sit overnight. Seasoning the cutting board replaces the oils that dry out of the wood, and then conditioning holds that in and creates a protective barrier. So I found this batch of homemade egg pasta in the freezer, and so I put it out to thaw, and I am making sort of like a gnocchi shaped pasta with it. I actually took a pasta making class recently and learned how to roll and cut pasta and cook it really quickly like this. So I am just rolling the pasta and putting it in some salted boiling water. Once it starts to float, I'm taking it out and just setting it aside so I can make a sauce. Now, one thing about this pasta is that it did oxidize a little bit. So if you make homemade egg pasta, make sure that you seal it up well and stick it in the freezer, because after time, if it's exposed to too much air, it will oxidize and turn gray. It's still fine to eat, but it's not really that appetizing. This one wasn't oxidized that much, so it was okay. When I am in the process of just standard everyday homemaking, I like to rely on just standard everyday recipes that I use all the time. And I like to make this white wine cream sauce all the time for whether it's gnocchi or pasta. Even sometimes I pair it with fried chicken and lemon. It's super simple. So it's just caramelized onions, deglaze the pan with a little white wine. A nice hack for that is to get the splits of white wine so you don't have to open a whole bottle just for cooking. And I add in whatever herbs I have on hand. In this case, I only had freeze-dried herbs available. I had herbs in my garden, but it was raining and I didn't feel like going outside. So I'm adding them in, put in the pasta, let it thicken a little bit, and that is lunch. Oh, I almost forgot. I added a little bit of cheese too, just to make it a little more interesting. But what makes this everyday recipe even easier is that I used onions that I had chopped up previously. So just the other day, I think on Friday, I posted a video of a Sunday reset and I chopped up some peppers and onions to use all week. So for this meal, I didn't even have to worry about chopping anything. It was ready to go. The pasta was in the freezer. All I had to do is roll it and cut it. The onions were already chopped. The herbs were already freeze-dried and ready to rock. So it was a super simple meal to make. And for me, having that sort of preparation and efficiency is what makes everyday homemaking palatable, because without it, it starts to get so tedious. Chopping onions every day, doing the exact same things day in, day out, which yes, is part of homemaking. But when I offer myself this simple support of recipes by heart that are versatile and prepared ingredients and foods around my kitchen, I can embrace the mundane and these everyday homemaking tasks with a lot more ease, and often too with much more gratitude. Okay, so I need to clean this sink and I am using Barkeeper's Friend to get this done. I'm sharing a lot of my favorite cleaning products in this video, so make sure to check out the description box below for links to all those products. But what I like about Barkeeper's Friend is that it gets off stuck on grime and dirt. If you have been following Moon and Magnolia for a while, you probably know I have been deeply embattled with a stained Dutch oven. And a combination of Barkeeper's Friend, baking soda, and a scrub daddy actually finally got all that grime off of my stove Dutch oven. What's funny about everyday homemaking tasks like cleaning this sink is that I hate doing it and I avoid doing it, but when it's done, I feel a lot better. I know tomorrow morning when I come downstairs on the first day of school and I make my cup of coffee at 6 or 6:30 a.m. and the first thing I see is a clean kitchen and a clean sink, I'm going to feel a lot better. But don't let this fool you. That sink has not been scrubbed for a while, so I don't want you to feel like you have to scrub your sink every single night before you go to bed. I just want to remind you that sometimes when you get the chance to do these everyday tedious things, it does feel good to get them done. Let's talk about homemade bacon. So I will soon have a homemade pepper cured bacon recipe on my website over at moonandmagnolia.com. This is homemade bacon that we made as a test for my site. So what I'm doing with this today is I am frying up the bacon and I am making a bacon bruschetta open face sandwich, if you will. And I am using the maple oat sourdough sandwich bread that I made in my video from last Friday. So if you want that recipe, I'll leave a link for that video in the description box below. I live in the American South and we eat a lot of things like fried food and bacon. And that also means there's a lot of splatter that comes out of the skillet. So I'm trying to remember to use my splatter screen to reduce the mess. What's really irritating is I've had that splatter screen in the cabinet for, I don't know, 150 years, and I always forget to use it. So I'm trying to help myself here with my everyday homemaking by not making such a mess. To make this little sandwich, I just toasted the bread from frozen. So that was pre-sliced bread, and I just put some butter in a skillet, toasted it that way, and then I'm putting the bacon on. And this is homemade bruschetta that I made and canned last year. The recipe for that is in the Ball Book of Canning, so I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. It's a really good recipe. And then I'm just topping it with a little bit of cheese, and this was so good. The maple oatmeal bread does not have like a deep maple or even oatmeal flavor. It's just a heartier whole wheat bread, and so it toasted really nicely and it held up with that bruschetta and the bacon on top, and it was delicious. For me, cleaning the counters is not just everyday homemaking, it's like every hour homemaking. I swear I wipe the counters down all the time, and I almost always use a homemade countertop spray that I make, or a DIY countertop spray. It's just a combination of water, vinegar, and sometimes a little lemon juice. But I have quartz countertops and sometimes they need a little more cleaning, and they also need a protective coating on them because in time the UV light that comes in can damage them, and we have a lot of sunlight that comes in our back sliding glass door. And also sometimes things just need a kind of scrub-a-dub-dub that I don't always do. So what I'm doing here is I am moving all the appliances, cleaning behind them with the quartz spray, and then I'm also taking a magic eraser and scrubbing the countertops with them. That gets off lots of things like little bits of coffee stains and buildup and grime around the sink. And the magic eraser is also really great for cleaning the backsplash. I'm hopeful that as we head into the new school year, into a new routine and some structure, because summer is always so unstructured and kind of wild, that I can work these sorts of tasks back into my everyday homemaking. But I also know that every day is different. So that means everyday homemaking will be different every day. So I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself to do these things all the time, but I am hoping to get into some better habits during the upcoming school year. Okay, let's talk about dinner. I have recently rekindled my love affair with the Instant Pot. I don't know why. I kind of just let it go for a little bit, but absence, I guess, makes the heart grow fonder because I cannot stop using this thing. I am making sort of a hybrid recipe. Both of these recipes are on my website over at moonandmagnolia.com. So I'm making a pork tenderloin in the same way that I make my Hawaiian pork tenderloin, but I am making this sweet and sour sauce that I make for my spare ribs recipe. So to make make this, all I'm doing is I am searing the pork tenderloin on both sides just for a couple of minutes. I'm taking it out. Then I'm adding in a cinnamon stick, 1-star anise, some sherry, balsamic vinegar, coconut aminos, soy sauce, and dark brown sugar. And none of this I am measuring. I am just eyeballing it. If you want clear measurements, you can get that over on my blog. I also added just a little bit of water to thin the sauce and a little bit of freeze-dried onion powder. And then I just simply pressure cooked this for 10 minutes and it was done. You'll want that pork tenderloin to reach 145 degrees Fahrenheit. So if your tenderloin does not reach that, just put it back in the pressure cooker for 2 minutes and then take the temperature again. In my Sunday reset video from last Friday, I made a huge batch of brown rice in the Instant Pot. So what I'm doing with this is I'm going to serve it with brown rice and the sauce that I cooked the pork tenderloin in. Everyday homemaking is hard. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It is hard to run a household and raise children and cook and clean. And we also have to acknowledge that being a homemaker does not necessarily mean you are a stay-at-home mom. It might also mean you work in an office full time and then you have to come home and do all of these things in a few hours in the margins of your day. So recipes like this that are in the Instant Pot take 10 minutes, that are versatile and can be used with rice and salads, that have a sauce that can be used in other dishes later in the week. These are crucial for making everyday homemaking survivable. A few weeks ago on YouTube, I shared a video about what to do when homemaking is hard. And now that I am sort of out of that phase where I feel like I'm not really in this survival stage anymore, that maybe, just maybe, we're beginning to thrive again after a challenging summer, it takes a little while to pick up the pieces of that. So if you've ever had, which I'm sure everyone has, had a phase of life where things just sort of get pushed to the wayside, it takes some time to get things back in order again. And now this is relatively inconsequential, but my kitchen is really showing signs of that. My stove has some spots where things are burned on that I can't get off. My floors need to be cleaned. My fridge needs to be cleaned out. There's a pretty big backlog of tasks that need to be done. And what's important to remember about everyday homemaking is that it doesn't have to be done in one day. For this day, I am just picking the tasks that I know I can get done, and maybe even more importantly, the ones that will make me feel better in the morning when I have to start the daily grind. Now, back to food again. I always have to have food going because, well, we do have to eat 3 times a day, of course. And one thing that really helps me in the kitchen is if I have a skillet or a pot, or in this case, an Instant Pot that's already dirty, I'm going to use it again because I want to use it twice or even 3 times before I have to clean it. So I already made the pork tenderloin in the Instant Pot. I rinsed it out, and now I am making a chicken that we can eat from all week. I shared a video recently about how to cook 1 chicken and use it for 3 meals. And I've talked a lot about making a whole chicken on YouTube, but this is my first time on YouTube using the Instant Pot. So I'm simply just putting the chicken in the Instant Pot, using those diced onions that I diced up a few days ago, adding in a little bit of seasoning and some water. You could also use broth, and I'm cooking it on high pressure for 25 minutes. Then once it's finished, I let the pressure release naturally and I'm taking it out. And this is my first time trying this. I'm putting it into a cast iron skillet that was already dirtied up, adding a little bit of butter and some seasonings, and then I broiled it for a few minutes just to crisp up the skin. It worked okay. Honestly, my husband liked it. I'm really picky about chicken skin. If it's not really crispy, I don't like it. He ate it and liked it. It's totally worth trying if you want. But next time, I'm not going to worry about the broiler. I've made a chicken in the Instant Pot maybe a million times in my life. It is one of my go-tos. I definitely recommend that for when you're in a pinch. But trying to recreate some crispy roasted skin in the broiler didn't really seem worth my time. And time is the most important resource as a homemaker, as a human being on this earth, because it is the only thing you can't get back. You can figure out a way to make more money. You can figure out a way to get more things, to have more fun, all of those things, but you can never get time back. So when it comes to everyday homemaking, I really try to make sure it is worth my time. Here I am just cleaning the stainless steel appliances in my kitchen, and for this day it is worth my time because they really need to be cleaned. I don't do this very often. Just like I mentioned, I don't clean my cabinets very often. I am actually cleaning my cabinets here because one problem with cleaning the stainless steel appliances below the counter is that you can see everything below the counter and then you see how dirty it is. So if you want to work around for cleaning, just keep your eyes on the horizon. Don't even look at this stuff and you won't even know that it's dirty. I'm just simply wiping these down and then wrapping up my day. I have a clean kitchen, I have food for the week, and on this day, that is enough everyday homemaking for me. I hope this video has inspired you to think of ways to structure your everyday homemaking while also giving yourself space and permission to know that you don't have to do it all every single day. Thanks so much for stopping by today, and I'll see you again next time.